This is simple standard standard XHTML. It has a form, login form, and it has two input where ID is a user. Keep in mind here it's not J username, it's just a username. For example, if you are familiar with Java authentication authorization on a web application, normally you have to define your login form with uh, a J username and J password and submit a form to J security or something like that. But it's a simple JSF form, no J user, no password. On clicking the login button, the action is authentication bean.login. Now let's look into the authentication bean. It's a managed bean, JSF managed bean. Go to Java resources, click on this authentication bean. It's a simple Java object. Here I define here managed bean. This is the JSF annotation, and I have given the authentication bean for this name of the bean, and the scope of the bean is the request scope. Next one, @component is actually a Spring based authentication. I'm defining this as a bean in my configuration files. If you look into app context.xml, I have defined authentication config that actually means that all my configurations are from the annotations. Sorry, I have defined the context to annotation config. That actually means that all my configurations are based on annotations. So I have defined the bean here, and I have auto-wired the authentication manager, and this is the part of the Spring framework, and this class will be automatically initialized as a dependency for this object. And the rest of the thing fields are user and the password, and we have a method called login. On submission of the login page, this method will get executed. Here I put the programmatic way of authenticating the username and the password. So this is all the Spring stuff. The authentication is the part of the Spring API. This is an interface. The username and the password authentication token, where I pass my username and password, and I create this instance for this interface and ask the authentication manager, and this instance basically loads the configurations from this is what basically the authentication manager is. So if you configure this to some external database, it will actually pull up the do the authentication based on these configurations. So authentication manager dot authenticate, and basically authentication manager is also an interface. It has some implementation classes, and passing the request. Request has username and the password. So if it finds the username and the password in the configurations, then it will give the result, otherwise it will throw an authentication exception. Once it is successful, what I'm doing is I'm setting up my authentication object to the security context holder, and it actually put the authentication object on the session. That's how you can actually programmatically define your Spring security. And the second important thing is, now you have authenticated. Now you need to redirect to the actual page you requested for. So you're on the login page, and it has to go to the actual page you requested for. So Spring actually saves your request in your saved request form, so that will be in your session scope. So I actually pull up the saved request object, the context dot saved request, and this is the object. On that, actually I'm calling the default saved request dot get redirect URL, and basically this will actually redirect to what page you're requesting for. That's it. So if I put a debugger here, and you can actually understand it very clear. So let me go back to the page and give the username and password admin, and my password, say login. Switch this to debug mode. So now we are here. The username is some admin, and we have the password, it's an admin. Let us walk step by step here. So now I'm authenticating here. The the authentication is successful. It got the so now actually I'm getting the context object, getting the default saved request. So now if you look at this, Control Shift I, basically you are requested for the admin page, because this page has some security constraints, I mean restrictions. So Spring Framework has redirected to the login form. You submitted your login credentials and they were successful. Now you're going to redirect back to the admin page. That's how we're doing here. So do we have 6? Do we have 8? It got okay, F8. Now if you go to this is the page, so you're admin and you're on the admin page. Close others. Let me come back to the original mode. I can go back to the home. Since I already log in, I can actually navigate to the I can navigate to the user page. So you're admin, you're on the user page. Again home, admin, you're on the admin page. Again home, user, you're on the user page. So I just log out here. If I click again on the admin, it will again ask for the credentials. That's how the logout works. So once you're done logout, your session will be invalidated, and again if you want to come back to the access the same resource, you need to give your credentials here. So admin, say login. So again you switch back to this, say no here, and let me go to the debugger and click this, come back here and remove this debug point. Debugger, click this. Okay, so it will again undo the admin user and just say logout. Now I will try with the login credentials for the user, say login. So your user, welcome user, you're on the user page. If I go home and try to actually access the admin page, so you need to get the authorization exception. Access denied, we are sorry, I just give this page. But if you click on the home page, basically it will log out and it will ask again for your credentials. Maybe you can put a back button there instead of logging out. You can actually send back to the page from where you navigated from. And user / user, say login. Okay, that's how I just implemented the Spring security, and this is the basic security I have implemented. And in the coming sessions or the coming tutorials or the demos, I'm going to look into configuring the security, I mean authentication manager to some external database or some the first I will try with the external database, and second thing is I will try with an external service. That's what the second level of security I would like to try. And if you have any comments, post the comments on this video, or you can actually mail me up on my email address. This is my email address. That's it. Thank you.